Cricket media used to be pretty simple. Find your favourite newspaper, head to Cricinfo, and maybe a blog you like. Now just finding the best stories and writing is a huge challenge. You already have a job. You just want to read about cricket. Well, that is what the best of cricket is currently doing. They go out daily to find the newest cricket coverage and the best stories from any publication in the world. And when they can't discover what they want, they also hire some of the best writers to produce their own great stories. You can get the best of cricket via their website or on WhatsApp. They find cricket's best stories and give them to you every day.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 52 of the Crickpicks podcast. I'm Behram who you can find at DefMango on Twitter. With me, to my right, is Estelle Vasudevan, who you can find at Estelle_Vasudev, the number 1 on Twitter. And then we've got Jarrod Kimber, as always, who you can find literally everywhere. And if you're new to Crickpicks, what we do on this show is that we take any generic cricket category and then we draft our top 15 for that in a snake-style draft competition. So everyone gets 5 picks each, and the order goes 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And the topic for today is the best all-format left-arm seamers of all time. Big one. Very, very excited for this. And Estelle, you have first pick.
Yeah, firstly, I should probably apologize to you for taking this first pick, shouldn't I? Because it's probably the really obvious one. Wasim Akram is number 1. More than 900 wickets across tests and ODIs. And I think averaging less than 24 in both formats of the game, 500 in ODI cricket, I think undisputed, the best left-arm pace of all time.
Yeah, 502 in ODIs, 414 in tests. And you're right to say that he was averaging below 24 in both of those formats. And I mean, whether it's the old ball or the new one, and it's just so many different Wasim Akrams as well in his entire career, right? And the one towards the end who barely had a run up and would still make the ball talk and you know, do heaps. I feel like it was quite undisputed.
Yeah, I mean, we were all going for that one, right? I don't think there was even I don't even think there was an argument for anyone else, realistically, especially once it was all format. There's probably an argument for some other players if you're just looking at Test cricket, but not all format, I don't think.
That's
all right. Well, that's done. That was easy. He was very good at cricket, and he bowled with the left arm. It's also worth saying that, you know, we talk a lot about Adam Gilchrist's impact with wicket-keeping batting, and I've talked about this before. It's not really there. Wicket-keeping batting had already changed before Adam Gilchrist. If anything, he brought about a freedom to it. Wasim Akram, literally before Wasim Akram, there's like 1 or 2 bowlers with 100 international wickets and 100 test wickets with left-arm seam. And after him, we have entire Pakistani teams with left-arm seam. We had an entire Indian lineup at one stage. Australia just churns out a new one every 5 minutes when you think that they're going to be done with them. You know, New Zealand had 2 in the one lineup. You know, Sri Lanka couldn't even find one right-arm seamer, but they found a left-arm seamer. Like, I'm not saying all of them are completely inspired by Wasim Akram, but they were.
Yeah, plus, you know, reverse swing was a big element of it as well, and his Yorkers, and there's so much more to it, you know, than just Wasim's skill, which was immense. And you listen to all of these left-arm seamers of, you know, the modern era, and they all cite Wasim as their inspiration.
Yeah, so I think that's fine. All right, number 2, I'm going to go Alan Davidson.
I knew this. I knew that you would go for him. And I had him in my long list. I just didn't know where to place him. And of course you would take him, the prehistoric pick that we're also accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, he got 186 wickets at 20.5 in Test cricket. So he has a much better record in Test cricket than Wasim Akram. I think part of the reason he dominated so much was there weren't any other left-arm seamers. So there was no, you know, at least there were some left-arm seamers when Wasim Akram was around. There were none when it was Alan Davidson. And he was obviously very fast. He was very fit. He swung the ball. There's some old footage of him. I remember, just watch it. It's like a camera from mid-on, and it looks like a video game, the amount he used to swing the ball. It's probably sad he didn't play as much cricket as he could have. But if this is best left-arm seamers of all time, he's the second best left-arm seamer of all time. There is, I'm sorry, no conversation for me that anyone else has ever been better. This means very other good bowlers. They'll come up on our list, but I think if you go back and you have a look at him, and to have an average of 20 in Test cricket, you know, job done.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one because a lot of people would have thought that you might go elsewhere, and you've made my job easy. Honestly, I've got 2 picks coming up which seem pretty straightforward now, but just on Alan Davidson, I recently learned about him. It's probably been a year, not more than that. And that record, 186 wickets at 20 and a half in Test cricket, is insane. So, I mean, I don't have any issues with your pick. Plus, like I said, makes my job easier, so I love it. And Estelle, I would have returned the favor, right? But because Jarrod has gone for Alan Davidson, I'm not going there. For my first pick, I'm going to go Trent Boult. 611 wickets across formats. 317 came in test matches, 211 in ODIs, and 83 in T20s. He bossed it pretty much everywhere. Like, tests are actually his poorest format. 27.49 is his average over there. And in ODIs, he's averaging 24.38. And his economy is just below 5. And in T20s, I mean, he's been one of the most successful left-arm bowlers, averaging 21.43 in T20Is. Economy is below 8, 7.68. And his overall average across formats is 25.6. So, I mean, I don't think there's much debate over there. And, you know, as far as swinging the ball is concerned and, you know, bowling with that new cherry, Trent Boult is one of the first names that comes to mind in all of bowlers, right? Like left arm, right arm, whatever. All right. So for my second pick, I shall go with Mitch Starc. More wickets than Boult. Boult had 611 across formats. Starc has 684. And Starc's overall average is actually slightly higher than Boult across formats. Boult is 25.6 and Starc is 25.8. And, you know, look at his record and it's absolutely phenomenal. Test matches, he's averaging 27.85. He's taken 361 wickets as of now, the date of this recording. And in ODIs, he is one of the best bowlers to ever grace that format, I believe. 244 wickets at 23.4 and his economy is also 5.26. And then when you look at his T20 numbers, 79 wickets in T20Is, average of 23.81 and economy of 7.74. So yeah, Boult and Starc make 3 and 4 in this list of top 15 and I'm quite content with those picks. Now I'm not feeling too bad about losing number 1, Estelle.
I think I would have switched them. I feel like Starc maybe has a case with his kind of championship stuff as well, that, you know, he's had a key role to play in tournament wins and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely top 5.
I feel like Boult is the better bowler in T20Is. And then in test matches, if you look at, you know, Boult's average, it's slightly lower than Starc as well, which is why I went with Boult.
Yeah, I would always have Trent Boult over Mitchell Starc. Mitchell Starc can't quite control what he does. And I'm not saying that that's a weakness, but Trent Boult for me, the first 3 guys are the left-arm seamers who are the most skillful and the most accurate and the most unplayable, I think. Whereas the other guys, I think everyone else on this list, actually, perhaps there might be one other coming up soon, but I think most other bowlers on this list, the left arm thing is their major advantage. Whereas I think these guys all would have been great bowlers if they were right arm bowlers as well. They might, instead of having low averages, the averages might have gone up a little bit, but they're so skillful and they're so smart and everything else. I am going to, just for the lols, I'm going to go Devas.
No, so you have returned the favor then.
No, I knew I wouldn't get him because, like, he has to be in the top 5, right?
I had Devas ahead of Mitch Starc. I think Mitch Starc's test career is a bit up and down. And I think if you look at Devas and you look at what he's managed to do, so he's taken almost 760 wickets. He's an average of 28 with literally no other seam bowling help, right, at all, on pitches that were made to kill seam bowlers. And I don't think he gets the credit that he should. I think he was a very, very underrated limited overs bowler as well. He was part of when the Sri Lankan team was the best white ball team in the world, or had that second best, I suppose, because they barely ever won anything. Sorry, Estelle. But during that whole period, he was the backbone of that, right? Because they didn't have another seam bowler. And he was, 5 years past his best by that stage? I just think he's such an underrated cricketer. And I think he was a fantastic player. So I'm going to go Devas there.
Also, a lot of these guys can bat, if you haven't noticed. Waz and then Alan Davidson was an all-rounder. Boult is, probably the worst batter thus far because Starc can, whack it, and Vas was very, very handy. Plus, worth mentioning, Jarrod, that out of his 761 wickets, Chaminda Vas, 400 came in ODIs at 27.53. And the economy was 4.18. So that was really his format. And in tests, like you said, non-helpful surfaces, he still managed 355 wickets, averaging under 30. I mean, that's quite phenomenal.
Also, he's like he did that without the constant wickets at the other end. Right? So at least in limited overs, they had some guys coming through. But at one stage, like in Test cricket, I think Murali had the most wickets, Vas had the second most, and Sanachaya Surya had the third most. Right? Like literally a part-timer having the third most. So yeah, I think I just think he's massively underrated. So I certainly would have had him ahead of Mitch Starc on my list, but there's not much between them.
Yeah. Also, played 6 T20Is, took 6 wickets, economy was under 6 and was averaging 21.33. So maybe if he
Would
was
have been
born
the
a generation
greatest
later.
T20 bowler of all time. Right? That's what I'm hearing here.
All right, Estelle,
Okay, so
double
I
pick
think
for you.
from this point onwards, it kind of gets a bit tricky because like you don't have players with that great a record. I will go with someone who I think is a great T20I bowler, but doesn't have such a great record in the other formats. I'll go with Fizz as the number 6 pick. Among modern bowlers, as a left armer, he's one of the best, isn't he? He's got 132 wickets at an average of 21, strike rate of 17, has been like, had the slow balls and all that variation that he brought into the game and has been effective for Bangladesh over a period of time, right? So I think as a T20 bowler in particular, his skills are kind of really up there.
He's got the 7th most wickets of any left arm seamer ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's quite fascinating.
and at his peak, I think if his elbow or what was it, his shoulder, whatever it was that he injured, hadn't gone, he's the only person I thought that could have gone past Akram. Obviously, there is another bowler coming through now who might also go past Akram on this list. But Mustafizur fully fit would have been the best Test bowler in the world, the best ODI bowler in the world, and the best T20 bowler in the world. The issue is that because of the amount of revolutions he puts on the ball, whether he ever would have been able to do that or not, I don't know. And that would be my argument against what I've just said. But yeah, I think a lot of people will be like, really? But it's like, that tells you how many wickets he's taken at international level. And Bangladeshis would be like, oh, he barely ever plays. And it's like, well, compared to the history of left armers, he plays quite a lot.
Yeah.
Well, in his favor, I suppose, is his white ball record, right? You mentioned 132 T20I wickets at 21.62. Economy is also 7.51. If you look at his ODI numbers, I feel like they might be a touch better. 172 wickets at less than 26. Economy is 5.17. So I think that he's good in both limited overs formats. It's just when it comes to Test cricket, the Fizz has taken 31 wickets at what? 36.74. That's a bit ridiculous.
I don't think he played much Test cricket when he was fully fit.
Yeah.
And when he was getting the revolutions on the ball. I think if he does that consistently, he would have averaged 24, 25 in Test. I think he would have had a very similar sort of Wasim Akram record. He takes a wicket every 30 balls in ODIs, by the way. Like it's a lot of
quite
wickets.
crazy.
And I think it would have benefited him as well if he was playing right now in Test cricket where they've got a kind of good fast bowling battery around him as well.
Yes, I know he could crank it up in full fitness, but primarily he's been a cutter bowler all his life, right? So,
well, I mean, he started to swing it recently, and also he can get normal seam off the pitch. So, but if you're talking about a cutter bowler, like I've done a video on this before, Behram. Think about him at his best when he was bowling cutters, right? So he comes on, he tries to move the new ball around. He's got a nice pace and energy. He's bowling what? Low 130s, high 130s, low 140s ish. Good control, moves it around. Probably going to get some new ball wickets. That isn't what he's best at in Test cricket. He then comes back on for his second spell. He bowls left arm around the wicket to a right-hander, and he aims every ball at the top of leg stump. And the ones that spin take out off stump, and there is nothing any batter in world cricket can do about them. The ones that go straight get you out bowled or LBW as well. He would be unplayable. And I can tell you, I've seen Wasim Akram do this at times, and I've seen Mitchell Jansson do this. Neither of them had anywhere near the amount of revolutions on the ball that he did. We have been robbed of a great Test bowler with the Fizz, and I know it doesn't show in his numbers, but I promise you, no one would ever be able to play him if he was doing that all day to right-handers. And the rare times I've seen him do it, it's just like you watch a right-hander look back at the pictures as to say, well, what am I covering for here? There is no way to play this.
Yeah, and I mean, the overall record is standing at 335 wickets at the time of this recording, and his average across formats is 25.2. So, I mean, some people might think you've gone a bit high with the Fizz, but he definitely would have been picked at some point anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so my second one is Zahir Khan. I think for India, another really great bowler in ODI and Test cricket. Didn't play too many T20 matches. Has over 600 wickets in both formats. I know the Test average is kind of high at 32.94, but again, like you have to keep in mind the types of conditions he bowled in, right? Very much spin friendly conditions, and he was kind of, I think, in that Vas vein where it was more about control and kind of outsmarting batters more than like pace and all of that. So another, I would say, really good bowler for left armour.
Yeah, no, 6-10 wickets across formats is immense. And even if, his overall average is 31.14, you mentioned how he played a lot on spin-friendly tracks. Well, in his era, Zahir Khan played a lot on flat decks as well, right? So if he's averaging, where is it? 32.94 for 311 wickets, it's not terrible, right? Yeah. And even in ODIs, he's averaging under 30, his economy is under 5, and he has 282 wickets. Yeah. So, 17 T20I wickets to top that off, I feel like it's a very safe pick.
And again, the World Cup, he was fantastic in that win, right?
Yes.
The 2011, so another kind of an impactful bowler.
Absolutely.
I would have had him slightly lower, but he is massively underrated. And I think if you look at the average of seam bowls in the games he played, he averages like 3 or 4 runs less in test matches than the other seam bowlers. So he is legitimately like a lot better when you do that. And so, yeah, I've got no issues with him being there. All right, I am up next, and I can take Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah.
Probably underrated as a T20 bowler, but because he kind of comes around a little bit at the end, but was an incredibly destructive T20 bowler and had one great year in the IPL. Could be a very good ODI bowler when he wanted to be as well, but at his best, probably the most destructive left-arm bowler we have ever had for a period of whatever it was. 8 tests? Was it 8 tests?
I mean, there were 2 years in which he bagged the Garfield Sobers trophy as well, right? So when he was hot, he would completely rip you apart.
He was ridiculous at his best, and look, he struggled a lot throughout his career. But you look at that. In the end, he's ended up with a bowling average of 28, and he was basically picked as a prospect forever in Test cricket. Still ended up with a really good bowling average. In one-day cricket, it's an average of 25, a wicket every 31 balls, and from 30 T20 internationals, he averaged 21. And I just want to find his IPL season. So I think was there one year where he went for no runs? Was it the first one when he went to Mumbai and he had an average of 19, an economy of 7. So he had a couple of poor years, but if you look at it, when he's at his peak, he was a brilliant bowler in the IPL as well. And then, to be honest, after 2014, he was kind of a bit, I just don't think he was the bowler he was before. But yeah, so if you look at the history of cricket, he's an incredibly important left-arm bowler, I think.
No, absolutely, especially in Ashes cricket as well. And 590 wickets to his name across formats at 26.65 overall. That's quite impressive. 313 came in test matches, 239 in ODIs and 38 in T20Is. And all of those numbers hold up, right? 28.4 in test cricket, knowing that he's had some shit years, is a very decent average. 25.26 at an economy of under 5 in ODIs is amazing as well. And then as you mentioned, you'd think he'd go for runs in T20s, but in T20 International, he's going for less than 7.5 runs and over, and he's averaging below 21. So, I mean, I actually would have gone higher with Mitch Johnson. I'm a touch surprised that he's gone this late, if anything.
He has a bit of an up and down career, though, doesn't he? And also, he probably has he's probably like the Andrew Flintoff of left arm seamers, in that there's an element of like, if you were there when he was at his best, you'll rate him higher. But if you actually do it in the cold heart of day, you probably move him back a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, that's fair. Also, I think up until this point, all the people that have gone, only Boult and the Fizz don't bat. Is that true? I feel like all of them can bat, can't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
that seems like a left arm seamer thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfair on Trent Boult's batting there, mate. But okay, if you want to slag him off.
He was one of the top picks in our number 11's Crickpicks, right? So anyway,
stop stalling and pick your players.
Oh no, I know who I'm picking. I'm going Neil Wagner for my next pick. Only played Test cricket, 260 wickets at 27.57. And I mean, if anyone, or for all of those people who actually watched him bowl they just know he was theatre. Never say die attitude. He's bowling with broken toes. He's bouncing out, opposition batting lineups for a living, practically. Probably one of the most prominent bouncer bowlers of history, really. Not even this generation, but I would say history. And yeah, that's why I feel like even though he played only one format, he deserves that recognition, which is why I picked him this high.
Yeah.
You had a weird look on your face, Jarrod. Explain your weird look.
Because I didn't think either of you would go for him this high. Yeah, I thought I'd be able to snatch a bit of Neil Wagner. He's got a new book out on his career that he's sending through to me at the moment, which is lovely. We try and get him on the podcast as well. I haven't heard him talk about his career as much, and he might regret coming on our podcast if he does, because I might keep him on for 3 hours. But look, change cricket, and I'm trying to. Wasim Akram changed cricket. Mustafizur could have, but didn't quite. Mitchell Jansson, I suppose, there's an element of. So Wagner's on the level of those guys of actually legitimately changing the way the game was played. We have the Wagner field now, right? That ridiculous field in world cricket. And we now have right arm bowlers like copying him. And I'm not sure there have been many times in the history, like Wasim Akram when he used to come around the wicket to right-handers and swing it away. That wasn't even a thing right arm bowlers would do to left-handers at that point, right? Like it wasn't a common thing. So even Wasim Akram wasn't inspiring the right-arm bowlers, and Wagner did. Like, the impact that he has had on cricket is phenomenal. And he did it by just working hard and banging the ball into the pitch over and over again, right? Like, he just worked his actual ass off.
Remember that Ashes test where there were tons of bouncers and we were calling it Wagner ball or the Wagner-verse? So yeah, I mean, he's definitely that kind of cricketer who remains fresh in your memory for a long, long time because he had that impact. He kind of changed cricket. So my next pick is going to get me or fetch me a lot of abuse because at this point we're just clutching at straws or whatever. It's all really random.
We survived that this long without making a weird...
Is this more or better than when Estelle picks Nathan Bracken?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than that. The only problem is that the player isn't currently in form. You did pick him for hair, I think. I think hair is fine for Nathan Bracken.
Hair is fine.
I think that checks out. He did have great hair.
He had hair.
Anyway, I am stuck between a throwback Aussie and a Pakistan left-arm seamer. And because I want Jarrod to pick the throwback Aussie, I'm going to pick Shaheen Afridi. I know that he is in a terrible run of form. And ever since that knee injury, he hasn't looked like the same bowler at all. He isn't as quick anymore, bowling mid-130s at best, right? And in the next few spells, we've seen that pace drop to below 130 as well. If you look at his peak, though, before that, he was one of the best new ball bowlers in the world. And at his pace, 140 plus, when he would get lateral movement, pitching the ball up, he was one of the most deadliest bowlers across the world with that new ball. And, despite this drop in form, Shaheen, at the time of this recording, still has 325 all-format wickets at 24.28. So he's 10 behind Mustafizur, and he's very young, right? And for all we know, he might... become that Shaheen again, even though I'm very skeptical when you think of Pakistan and handling, or Pakistan and the PCB's handling of fast bowlers. But 116 test wickets, 102 ODI wickets, and 97 T20I wickets at the time of the recording. And even in tests, we've seen him completely drop off, right? Like, he cannot buy a wicket, and he's still averaging 27.88. Not too long ago, that was even lower. Like, that was around 23, 24. In ODIs, he's still got a good record. 23.13 is his average, and his economy is 5.44. And in T20Is, his economy has increased. He's going for more runs. So the overall number has come to 7.8, but his average is still 21.28. So, I mean, I could have gone for a few other people, but I still feel like if we consider Shaheen's peak, he still deserves to be on this list.
Yeah, I don't think you would throw him away. I had him on my long list. You've probably taken him. I mean, it's your fourth pick, so it's probably not the end of the world there. You might have taken him a little bit earlier. I think he makes this. The truth is that we are kind of at that part of the list where there's not a lot of options. And it does drop off quite substantially. And, I'll talk about the history of it, at the end as well. So I can understand why you're going with it. Look, he is, who have we got on the list so far? He's a better bowler than Wagner. He is, at his best, more skillful than Starc. He's more consistent than Mitchell Jansson. He's faster and more dangerous than Jamin Devas. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could go through the list. It's also very possible that in 5 years' time, everyone's like, you chose who? And it's very possible in 5 years' time, it's like, he was that low?
True.
Right? He was on the road to greatness, and that road, he has lost all of his wheels and is currently thumbing a ride, right? Like, that's where he is at the moment.
Also, the PCB have literally like created trenches in the road for him to fall into.
Was he not a captain who never captained at one stage, if I remember correctly?
No, he did. He did captain in,
No, but
I
didn't
think
he-
it was 5 T20Is.
But wasn't he made captain and then that was rescinded, the offer?
Yeah, the very next hour, I think it was rescinded. They announced him as white ball captain, and then they made an error. Oh, well, they made a correction and said T20I captain. So,
Do you know what I mean?
Like,
there's
ODI captain for an hour tops.
He's had a lot to deal with. I still think he's a fantastic player. I've got no problem with him being on this list. Okay, I am going to go with the player that you already hinted at, which is Bruce Reid. It's really interesting now that unfortunately we never quite saw. Well, we obviously never saw the most of Bruce Reid. He's more famous now for being injured than anything else. And we're seeing Marco Jansson come through, who might still make our list as well, who is the next Bruce Reid, right? Like, he's kind of the evolution of Bruce Reid. But if Bruce Reid had played for 12 years consistently without injuries, you would have had him and Wasim Akram would have been the two people that changed left-arm bowling forever. Unfortunately, Bruce Reid didn't do that. He was very interesting in that he was a left-arm seam bowler, but his main skill wasn't swing. It was bounce, and he was a very good seam bowler, which is not really what you expect from most of these players outside of Mitchell, Jansson, and Wagner are swing bowlers, right? And that's consistent right through the history of left-arm bowling, right? Even in modern times, the bowlers who are most likely to swing the ball these days are still left-armers more than right-armers, right? And Bruce Reid was very different to that. I think if you want a modern comparison, he's a different kind of bowler, but I think the best kind of comparison is Ryan Harris. Whereas if he plays for another 5 years at the level that he was playing at, he's just a legend. And instead, he's a really good player, but he got forgotten almost in his own era because of the other players that are around him. But just a fantastic, could not bat at all. That does go against your batting. In fact, the last three picks, in fact, go against your batting thing a little bit there. Comically bad as a batter, and went on to be a cult hero because he was so freakishly tall. I think he was 6'7", 6'8".
Also had a freakish action, if I'm not wrong.
It wasn't even just freakish. It was just that it looks weird because his left arm. It's not how left armers. If you go through this list, that most left armers kind of run through the crease and have these perfect wrists. And Bruce Reid was sort of big and it looked like his arms and his legs were too big for his torso. A friend of mine actually bought his shirt a couple of years ago, and he said that it was just like it was so long, like every part of his body was just incredibly long. But if you look at the list, I don't want to go through all the bowlers, but really from Alan Davidson to Bruce Reid, there isn't another great left-arm bowler. And so he is the next great left-arm bowler after Alan Davidson. And unfortunately, we never saw the best of him. Handy in ODI cricket as well, but probably my memory of him was certainly that he could have been destructive in tests. And we never quite saw that. So he plays 27 tests and averages 24.6. And then in ODI cricket, he went for a few more runs, and there's also famously he got smashed at the end of a couple of games. I don't think he knew exactly how to bowl in ODI cricket compared to Test cricket. But in Test cricket, he would have gone on, had he been fully fit, to probably play 60 to 70 Test matches. He would have dragged Australia from being a laughingstock in the 80s to being a very good side. That's the difference that having Bruce Reid would have had. And also, very good flat pitch bowler because he was massively over tall.
Also, I mean, if you look at the overall record, 176 wickets despite getting injured so frequently is still pretty good. And 113 wickets in test matches at 24.63. So 13 of those, if I can, brush up not my memory, but my knowledge, came in an Ashes test, I reckon at the MCG or something like that. That's what he's really, really famous for. ODI record isn't that great, 63 wickets at roughly 35.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's fine. At this point, I don't think we're going to have any all-format superstars.
Also, it's probably worth remembering that I don't think he was ever particularly good at one-day bowling, like even domestically. but quite often they would play him in one-day cricket to try and get him fit for Test cricket again. So my guess is he probably wasn't always fully fit when he was playing in the one-days. They were like, okay, let's get him a couple of games in, and then we'll get him back into the Test. And usually what happens was he fell apart. So the 12th man skit is all about, like, the early 12th man recordings are all about Bruce Reid and him falling apart and Australian cricketers looking for sticky tape to tape him back together. That's what he is more famous for now than actually bowling.
Yeah. Also had good hair. So now it's Estelle's turn. She's got 2 back-to-back picks. And Jarrod, this is about the time where she picks Nathan Bracken, right?
Oh, we must be. No. We're Bracken o'clock, surely.
Unfortunately, not. So like Behram mentioned, it's at this point of the list, it's tough to pick someone who's. I mean, there aren't any who are like all format superstars, right? So you've got players who were probably good at one format or two. I'm going to pick one who he definitely didn't fulfill his potential, but he still has a decent record across formats. Mohammad Amir, not the most liked person on earth, but had a great
Tell me
record.
more.
I think one of the first recordings we did together, Behram spoke like for 40 minutes about him and Salman Butt. So you can add to that. So he's got 71 wickets in T20s at 21.94, 81 wickets in ODIs at 29.64, and 119 in tests at 30.47. But I think we can all agree that he never really reached his potential. He was a really, really good bowler, but just didn't play enough, right? And didn't get there.
If he didn't lose 5 years from his career, which was also his own fault, I mean, you could imagine him being higher on this list, honestly, because those were his peak years.
I think if you look at the last 3 picks, Shaheen Afridi is midway through his career. Bruce Reid lost years through injury, and Mohammad Amir obviously lost his, well, maybe not peak, but close to his peak years probably, due to the match fixing, right? Like that's the tier we're on at the moment. We know those 3 bowlers are incredible, but we, in one case we have no idea what will happen from here on in, and with the other 2, it's like they were still very, very good bowlers, but we maybe never saw the best of them.
And Amir has 350 plus wickets in T20s, I think, if I have that correct. And overall in internationals, even despite these hiccups and big hiatus periods due to corruption, he's ended up with 271 international wickets at less than 28, which still is, you take that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think it tells you what a good player he was and what we probably missed out on because of his own actions.
Absolutely. Okay, Estelle, last pick for you.
Last pick. I'm going with white ball specialist, James Faulkner.
Okay.
Oh my God.
My God. He was not even in my long list. Estelle, Nathan Bracken was a better pick.
I can't believe you've gone. You've out-brackened yourself here.
No, the point is like that he had like really great periods where he was kind of this.
He did.
Yeah, and
he had 15 minutes of.
And it's my last pick, so I feel like his record across ODI and T20 cricket at this point in the list is pretty good, right? He's got 96 wickets at 30.85 in ODIs and econ of 5.53, only 36 wickets in T20Is, but average of 19.
I think it's fair to say that with her last pick, she's forked up her list.
Well, there's a lot of people who really like James Faulkner, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes down. What I would say is this. How old do you think James Faulkner is?
33.
He's not 40, right? He's
Behram's almost right. He's 34. And when was the last time he played any sort of role in like major cricket? So I think the year I took over the Melbourne Stars was 2018. And I reckon by that point, he was kind of already done in international cricket. Not international, but even franchise cricket, right? Like he was already on his way out. I think this is a stretch. Right? I think Estelle's gone a bit far here, but he was a player who, if he had continued to play the way his cricket was going, I think he was on the road to an incredible career. Where he would have ended up, like how much better is he than Irfan Pathan? right? And I'm not having a go at either of those players, but I'm just saying, is Faulkner like 100 times better than? Is 5% better than Irfan Pathan? He was probably like 10% better, but Irfan Pathan has a really long career, right? But it is so. I'm so conflicted. So we'll be doing a feature on him once, because I don't think we've ever had a cricket burn as bright for such a 2 or 3 year period, and then essentially disappear completely in what should have been his prime. And when I wrote about him at the Melbourne Stars, he basically came to a point where he went from, remember when he would hit all those sixes and would finish all those games and Australia got really excited to him?
Yeah.
He became the best strike rotator in T20 cricket. He went from being one of the best six hitters to the best strike rotator. And it's like he made some odd career choices that I couldn't even fully explain to you. But the reason he basically stops being a very good player is his knees. He had chronic issues with his knees, and that's why we're talking about someone who's 34, and really hasn't been a player in a very, very long time. So I'm just having a look here. So in 2019, he plays 31 games, and since then, he has played across 3 years. So 2020, 2021, 2022, he's played about another 20 games. Like, he went from being one of the most recognizable players and franchise players and everything to absolutely nothing overnight. It's a fantastically weird career and a fantastically weird pick.
I mean, if you go back in time to the 2015 ODI World Cup where he was player of the final, and you asked me about James Faulkner, I would have told you great slow ball and someone who can hit it big, right, when it comes to batting. And right now, if you ask me what I remember of James Faulkner in the last few years, it is breaking the chandelier at the Pearl Continental Hotel during the PSL, right? He threw his bat at the chandelier. And then also, do you guys remember that entire saga where people thought he came out of the closet and then he came and refuted it? Do you remember that?
I remember there was something that he said and was misunderstood or something. Was that what it was? Yeah.
And first people were like lauding him, and then he comes out and says, no, guys, nothing like that.
Yeah. I mean, what a weird career. I mean, you just explained his arc. And the thing is that also we have this massively famous cricketer that most cricket fans of the last 10 years, or 15 years certainly, will have a very good memory of. And yet when he got injured, there's almost nothing about his knee injury, right? Like he's disappeared more dramatically than than Corey Anderson did, right? Like he went from being this huge star to just not existing. It's incredible to me to see that happen. And also he went from, as I said, he was a bowler who slogged them to a batter who knocked the ball around. It's just like everything he did was so bizarre and out of control. And I mean, Estelle's just played a blinder here, or she's played something.
Even his mustache wasn't that great, right? Like, it's probably got to be one of the worst mustaches in cricket.
It's not one of the best, is it? Okay, I will go with Bill Vos next. I don't know if he came up on either of your lists, but Bill Vos is probably prior to World War One. World War II, sorry. Left arm seam just doesn't exist. It just isn't a thing in Test cricket. Bill Vos comes along, and why he's particularly important is he wasn't just a left arm seamer, but he is the left arm seamer in Bodyline. And he's part of the reason that Bodyline exists, right? And if you think about it, between then and Neil Wagner and Mitchell Johnson, I suppose you could throw in there as well, we didn't really have that. No one really played on the fact that left arm bowlers could bounce you. Everyone was trying to pitch it up and swing it back in. And it's like, no. This bowling left arm seam at a high pace is really hard to face. And so, Bill Vos doesn't go on to have a great career as far as he doesn't quite get to 100 wickets. But he has 98 wickets at 27.88. But he's an incredibly important player, I think, in the history of the game again. And not someone, very well remembered these days. And so, I'll put him in because I don't think there's, I mentioned Irfan Pathan as well. I think he has a case. And you could also, Marco Jansson has 111 wickets. So, there's still a chance. Sorry, Behram, if I've ruined that for you there. But I just think Bill Vos deserves to be on this list.
Yeah, no, he was on my long list, Jarrod. I just didn't know where to place him because, we weren't alive for the Bodyline series. And I know he had an impact, but then of course, there's a caveat of Bodyline, right? So how do you kind of work around that? But I love his story, him and Larwood, both minors, right?
Yep.
if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
So it's an interesting chapter in the history of our sport. And now you've left me with a very difficult choice because I really thought you'd go Irfan Pathan, and make this easy for me. Because it's either him. I could honestly even go Nathan Bracken. But you know what? Because Estelle's gone Faulkner, I'm just going to go for a streets will never forget player. And I'm going to pick Junaid Khan. 189 wickets overall. His average was hovering around 30.
You're picking Junaid Khan over Marco Jansson, and you're making fun of the James Faulkner pick.
Jansson has just started, right? So how can I put him in an all-time list?
Well, he's taken more wickets than Bill Vos has.
That's fair. I just feel like, Junaid's numbers don't do him justice. He might even pop up in one of our other not Footmarks, Crickpicks. And 110 ODI wickets at less than 30, 71 test wickets at 31.73 when he was bowling in the UAE, and there was nothing in those surfaces for quicks. And weirdly enough, he never got picked for away test tours for Pakistan. He was criminally underutilized. Pakistan kept favoring Wahab over Junaid Khan. And, when Pakistan won the Champions Trophy in 2017, he was, the second highest wicket taker for them behind Hassan Ali. And that wasn't even his peak. His peak was when he was completely, what would I even call it? Absolutely making Indian batters look like amateurs in their own backyard in that ODI and T20 series, or ODI more specifically. I feel like if anyone has watched that spell of bowling on YouTube, they were mesmerized, and that's kind of why I've gone for him.
Look, I think he was a fantastic bowler. He should not be on this list, quite clearly, but I do think he was a fantastic bowler. That bit I wouldn't argue. I think they had an embarrassment of riches at that position, the left arm seam position, and he got pushed out. But he is not in the best 15 left arm seam bowlers of all time list.
I mean, there's some big misses over here, right? A lot of people missed out.
Okay, well, you say there's some big misses. I mean, realistically, the most of the people who took a lot of wickets are in this list already. We have actually taken the people with the most wickets. Not that's not how I really looked at it, but that's kind of how it's ended up. I mean, Irfan Pathan, I think for me, Irfan Pathan was a good fifth bowler, handy bowler in certain situations. I'm not sure he doesn't deserve to be in ahead of the last two picks that you guys have made, but it's on the edge. Ashish Nehra is another one.
Yep, I had him in my long list.
But then you're at players like what? Was he not bowling in the nets to the Sri Lankans before they came over the other day? Estelle, did you hear that? They said that on comment. No. They said on commentary something about it, and I didn't know if they were joking or not. If that was the case, so he's another one. Ashish Nehra is another one who I think at his best. James Franklin, but that's kind of it. And Gava.
Side bottom. Nathan Bracken, side bottom. Wahab, right?
There's this old South African player that was in, his numbers were good. Trevor Goddard.
Brett Schultz, is it?
Brett Schultz. Trevor Goddard.
You've both mentioned South African cricketers. Trevor Goddard was a very good cricketer. Yeah, he's probably. But again, I think have a look. My memory of him was more of an all-rounder.
All-rounder.
Because he doesn't take a lot of wickets. Now, we don't have Sobers.
Yeah, we don't have Sobers. But how many of Sobers' wickets were steam up?
That's the question, right? I don't know how to answer that, and I'm not sure we'll ever truly know. Sobers was picked as a spinner when he first started, and he becomes a seamer kind of later on, and then becomes a really good new ball seamer. But we don't know how much he actually bowled. And it's not the only one. The other one, there's from India, Karsan Ghavri as well. It used to be very common. We don't see it as much anymore, but it used to be very common that left-arm seamers would also bowl left-arm finger spin. It doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. But yeah, Trevor Goddard was a very good player as well. I think my memory of Trevor Goddard was he was probably more of a Irfan Pathan type cricketer, but with a better record, to be fair, all things considered. So yeah, there's certainly an element of that.
Jansson and Irfan both have kind of missed out over here. They probably deserve to be on this list.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys need to take a good look at yourself.
Ashish was also a good one, and I mean, I totally thought Estelle will eventually pick Nathan Bracken, but she chose to go even more rogue.
So the list is Estelle went Wasim Akram, the Fizz, Zahir Khan, Muhammad Amir, James Faulkner. I went Alan Davidson, Chamin Devas, Mitchell Johnson, Bruce Reed, Bill Vos, and Behram went Trent Boult, Mitch Starc, Neil Wagner, Shaheen Afridi, and Marco. No, you didn't go Marco Jansson. God, I wrote Junaid. I wrote Junaid Khan in, and I've just realised I wrote it in the wrong box. There it is, Junaid Khan.
Your brain told you Marco Jansson, which is why you
No,
said
Jarrod
it.
had already typed it in, I think.
Yeah, of course I had. Why would I not have typed it in? I don't understand. I do.
Yeah.
To be fair, I do that a lot though. I type in the name that I'm positive you guys are going to go for, and it just you go in a drastically different direction.
Anyway, that kind of wraps this episode of Crickpicks up. So let us know who wins this one in the comments below. And just a quick reminder, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be a one-stop shop for all the work that we do as part of this team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. Also, let us know if there were any names that we missed out in our honorable mentions, because it tends to happen, right? But anyway, we'll be back.
Bilal Khan from Oman.
Yeah.
Jeez, he's had a good career. And also Richard Ngarava from Zimbabwe. I like both of them. Just as random left armers that obviously we're never going to make this list, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll catch you again on another episode of Crickpicks probably next week. But till then, that's all from us. So have a good one, guys, and goodbye.
And that is why Nasser Hussain decided to bowl first at the Gabba. And this all, of course, reminds me of Hit Wicket, which is a mobile cricket strategy game that is all about making those tough decisions. Who do you want to send in as an opener when the asking rate is climbing? Do you go for the big hitter or the steady accumulator? Me, I like to throw in someone a little bit unorthodox. A bit of a wild card like the general. That keeps the opposition guessing. And what about the bowling attack? Do you unleash your express pace early or hold back for the death overs? I'm always tempted to bring on a mystery spinner in the middle overs and just try and break a partnership. Hit Wicket puts you in the captain's chair. You draft the squad and select the batting order and even decide when to use those game-changing abilities. Do you burn your 2x ability to chase down a big total or save it for a critical moment later on? It's strategic, it's addictive, and it's more nerve-wracking than facing a show-up actor bouncer. Give it a go. Download Hit Wicket and see if you've got the tactical nous to win.